to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull Channel's Saturday night stream. Hi, Mask. How you doing tonight? Okay, we are someplace rural. With slow advancement. That's fun. Something tells me East Asia about this, but I could be wrong about that. I had a fun little experience. I was streaming on the other channel this afternoon, and suddenly a bunch of people I'd never actually seen before showed up in there, which seemed like it was going to be quite cool. A bunch of people from Peru, it seemed. And then it turned out they were a bunch of fash trolls who filled... Oh, you saw that. Yeah, that was fun. Filling my chat with fucking Nazi ASCII junk. I learned a lot of administrative functions there. Okay, we are in Thailand. Oh, well, the first 10 minutes are me being overjoyed to see all these new people in there, and then slowly discovering that they're a bunch of sexually harassing, like, fucking shitbags. Yeah, definitely Thailand. This is the second time today I've had rural Thailand. And that's as far as we're going, apparently. So let's just say 328 kilometers, not too bad for a language I can't read. 4,000 points. Okay. Okay, this feels like North America. Feels like my... I don't know, something about that construction immediately makes me think remote area. Yeah, it sucked. Wasilla, we're in Alaska, I was right. That construction immediately tells me far north. Something about that siding. We are in Wasilla, Alaska. Oh, fucking Sarah Palin. There was a time when she was the most embarrassing politician in Washington. It's really kind of hard to believe now. Смерть фашизму, свобода народу. Okay. There's Wasilla, that's right. Okay. Crazy Moose subs. Dollar Hide Engineering. I've only ever heard that name in a Thomas Harris novel. Hebrews Cafe. Interesting. Yeah. As I always say, in capitalism, each government is a little better than the next. Okay, let's see. First Baptist Church of Wasilla, AP&T. Wonder if the Mexican food is any good in Alaska. Or if it's Fraser's Way. Or if it's like the southern cone where it's just too far away for anyone who knows anything about Mexican food to ever even settle there. Okay. That's a great name. And yes, I know that means transmission, but I mean, what the fuck? What are they? They have like pulled pork sandwiches that they make while they're in between working on your fucking car? Yeah, that's about right. Usana Health, Wasilla Bible Church. Wait, are there any like non-Bible churches out there? First Church of Christ, comma, scientist. Like it's his fucking CV. A street name would help. So we're gonna try to find one. Oh, we were just this way. Oh, wait, First Presbyterian Church of Wasilla. We just saw that. There we are. First Baptist Church, true. Stewart Title Company. There we go. Okay. $248, 49.99. Not too bad at all. Okay, corn. Rather charming looking houses. The roofing doesn't look North American to me. I mean, the whole configuration actually doesn't. Kind of vaguely continental, but I'm not sure. That's illegible. It's funny how no matter how much space you've got on your screen, you could always use a little bit more. Gespecialiseerde voedverzorging, gelaatsverzorging, lichaamsverzorging, ontharing, handverzorging. Okay, we are either in the Netherlands or we're in Belgium. I mean, let me see. Is there anything that immediately tells me that that is not Afrikaans, other than that this totally does not look... Ichtegem. Other than that this just does not look like South Africa. Yeah, or, well, let me see. This number plate is white. We're in Belgium. Dutch number plates are yellow. So we are in Flanders. Come on out, you black and tans, go on and fight me like a man. Show me how you win those medals down in Flanders. Okay, Ichtegem. Nooit gehoord. But it's gotta be up here someplace. It's like all the Dutchness of Belgium is on this end of the country, really. Did you see that Caleb Maupin tried to tell a joke about Trotskyism recently? And he was so proud of what he thinks was a joke that he gave it its own dedicated, like, 30-second fucking video. And wow, like, he would lower the standard of any open mic in the country. Mausefeld. Oh, hold on. There was writing on there. Maybe it's useful. Allamerika verkoop ruil verheur Ernegem. Okay, and that... maybe that is the place name. Edegem. De Panne, Torhout, Fern, Ichtegem. There we go. Indeed. Show me how you won them medals from Ned Flanders. Okay. Well, hold on. There's like a... manicure pedicure place that we're about to come up to. What's it called? Just beauty. That's easy enough. Kriegstraat. Ichtegemstraat, Engelstraat, Ringlaan. Abdijstraat, Pieter Bruggelaan. The most enigmatic of the Netherlandish painters. 4.4 kilometers. Ah, there's Kriekestraat. 49.85, still not bad. Okay, this looks North American. Yep, US, speed limit 55. Kingdom Hall. Give us a place name. Dulamo. That means absolutely nothing to me. But it's 2 miles away. Oh, hold on, what was that? Carolina Realty. We're in South Carolina. Okay, that simplifies things greatly. Ah, they've got a spare Scranton. Yes, that's what you'd think, but I mean, sometimes you just have to have an extra. So we are near Dulamo, South Carolina, wherever the hell that is. Well, just as long as Scranton doesn't make the mistake of Altoona and try to come up with its own style of pizza that is just painful to even contemplate. The world did not need Altoona style pizza. It's just bread and bullshit. Have you seen? I mean, this isn't a thing I'm making up. This is a thing that exists, and it's fucking ugly. I mean, I think we can all, New York, Chicago, Neapolitan adherents, can all agree Altoona pizza must be expelled from our midst. But fortunately, nobody would like... It kind of is self-expelling because it's so, like, repellent looking. It looks like pizza as imagined by a fucking school canteen. Nick's Island Ice House. Okay, it's coastal, I assume. But then Rhode Island isn't a fucking island, so... Yeah, Polly's Island. Sister and her family went there for on holiday recently. Hobcar House. Caledonia. Cape Island. Dewey's Island, Isle of Palms, Sullivan's, James Island. But I've been to Rhode Island. I've seen it on the map as well. It's not a fucking island. It's just... It's not even a peninsula. It's just bullshit. But yeah, the first time I flew into Providence Airport, I was rather surprised to find out how their long-ass name, although apparently they decided to take plantations out of the name. Hilton Head Island, Bluffton, and that's already Georgia. Okay, so we're none the wiser yet. There's got to be a route number or something. This road feels like it's a state route. Fort Fremont Historic Site and Park. Penn Center Historic District. Okay. Paris Island, Polly's. Never been to Polly's Island, but it looks lovely. Been to Myrtle Beach, and I have to say that kind of sucked. Ah, okay. Wherever exactly this is, it's home to the Gullah community. Heard interesting things about their language. Apparently, they were cut off for long enough off on an island someplace that they managed to develop quite an interesting one. Well, there's John's Island. I wonder if Nick's Island is nearby. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just isn't really a great name. It's just isn't a great thing to have in the name, given the history of plantations on this continent and various others. The 841st Trans Battalion in Charleston. Don't tell Glinner. I mean, that means there are another 840 of them at least. Turfs better watch out. All I'm saying. Bird Island, Ocean Isle, Holden Beach, Big Beach. Wait, have we already... Oh, we've already crossed into North Carolina. Sea Island Parkway. I mean, tell Caleb Maupin that lands South 21. Thank you. I knew this was a state route. Or, well, a U.S. highway. I don't give a shit. One of them. Tell Caleb Maupin that they took plantation out of the name of fucking Rhode Island. And he'll have his next CPI There we go. 21. He'll have his next CPI conference there. Real communists want the name plantation back in the name of Rhode Island. Sea Island Parkway, Frogmore, Penn Center. Okay, well, there we go. Okay. Where is South Carolina? .3 kilometers off. Not bad at all. 49.92. And here we are, 5 at 5. And I'm going to say this is almost certainly, yep, it's Japan. Oh, what's it like? Oh, okay, interesting. Not all stop signs in Japan also have the English on them. 路上駐車券金. No parking on the road. 白金山住宅管理組合 Homeowners Association. Okay. I spent a week in Myrtle Beach with it was the trip that determined that this asshole my mom was seeing was actually an asshole and wasn't going to be one that my mom was seeing for much longer. Hirazukashi. それはどこなんだ? Dog training service. Kanagawa. And they've all got their masks on. That is so heartwarming. Even the guy who did Abe Shinzo had his mask on, doing his bit for public health. Naruse. Okay, let's keep going. Booze. Open all year. Okonomiyaki. Okay, that is an Osaka specialty, but doesn't necessarily mean it is an ramen. And that says Yokohama style ramen. Ah, interesting. So are we in the home of okonomiyaki? Or are we in Yokohama? Or are they calling it Yokohama style ramen because it's not in Yokohama, as George Carlin once said? Only reason they call it New York style is because it's not in New York. Okay, maybe, okay, Kanagawa, possibly. Kanagawa. Okay. In which case, Yokohama is looking more and more plausible, actually. Wham! Somehow just the name Wham is reminding me of that Vice article supposedly from 2003 that's been going around about how it was supposedly a tradition amongst the under 25s back then to do angel dust in Christmas, which is why we have the song, "Last Christmas I did angel dust, and the very next day I tried to huff raid. This year something has become clear, I need to find some new traditions." Okay, Yoda, Numazu, Hadano, 20, okay, the 246, National Route and Prefectural Route 22. 246. There we go. And was it Hadano? And Yoda. Ah, Hiratsuka. Yeah, that's okay. Somewhere roughly in here. Kanagawa, Hiratsuka. I was considering making that joke. 7.3 kilometers off. Not too bad at all. 49.76. And what have we got? 23 to 965. Not a bad innings. Not a bad innings at all. actually relatively early. Maybe do a bit of play a bit of rapid before we move on to the chud dunking section of the evening. Oh, I'm just seeing your message on Messenger, Mask. Smrt fascizmu sloboda narodu is Serbian. It means death to fascism, freedom to the people. It was a partisan slogan during the war. Well, that's not very specific at this point. During World War II. Let me just make sure my crop's okay. Crop looks wonderful. Okay, 10 minutes rapid. Let's see. Okay. Standard reverse Sicilian situation going on here. Prophylactic move to avoid knight g4 with this annoying bishop here. Does kind of weaken my king side a little bit, but I want to make a my goal is to make a an advance on the king side anyway with f4, possibly f5, open up the f file and just cramp black style. So we'll see. And now that bishop e6 has come, I'm gonna play knight d5 next because which is the whole point of this setup, and also because there's a delightful little blunder that I think we're about to see. That now, if you take with the f knight in this position, you end up forking your pieces. Okay, that's an annoying little move, but I don't care too much about it. I've still got my light squared bishop, and that's the one I care the most about in this configuration. Okay, time for the f4 break. Thank you. Well, I mean, surely you need to get your queen out of the way. Nice thing is now that pawn isn't there. Just lock up the G&H files for the moment. Oh shit, I could have just taken that knight. Let's see. Okay, is anything being threatened here that I care about? I don't really see it. I mean, yeah, it looks threatening to take on A2, but I don't think that's a reason not to have a bit of a go. Okay, I'm up 2/3 of a piece. Queen. And my light squared bishop is basically preventing this remaining rook from getting into the game, so that's something. 부르고 내 마음 즐겁다 손풍금 소리 울려라. Okay, that is somewhat dicey, but not so much that I'm all that worried. Plus, assuming that there are no checks forthcoming, I've got okay, that was beautiful. I'm very happy with that. 무승부를 요청했습니까? He wants a draw. Yeah, yeah, I'm very, that came off even better than I was actually thinking it was going to. I mean, at this point, I could just fucking trade queens, and I'd be okay. Okay. I mean, I was gonna trade, but if you want to give it to me for free. And mate. GG. He must not have been thinking that that's what was going on. And like mentally skipped over the bit where the queen was hanging or something. I don't know. But that was pretty. Let me just look at that again. So, check. Evades, basically one of two moves that are both pretty forced. Take the pawn, attack the rook with discovered check. Now there was a way out of that, not really though. It was actually not a real way out of there because you could just sack the rook at that point. But it doesn't actually help you any. In fact, then I just get the queen for nothing, but I got that anyway. Yeah, not sure what they were thinking here. But, I mean, that is the prettiest combination I've pulled off in a bit. I'm quite chuffed to bits with that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they could trade queens and try to go for the draw, and they might have had some kind of chances. I mean, they had a lot of pawns. They had some chances to make things complicated for me, certainly. But, I mean, and I mean, without the queen, I was still in really good shape. But I mean, I was still totally winning. But there was a bit more chance of me fucking up. Okay, let's see. What sort of reactionary bullshit do we want to look at? We've got New York people destroy restaurant for no reason. Cities are collapsing. From Pim Tool. Supreme Court. Oh, Caleb Muppet wants to tell us how communists should respond to Supreme Court rules on abortion, and I wonder how the fuck should he know? Yeah, I mean, I was actually in pretty good shape to promote upon at that point. I managed to. God, I see. The thing is, I thought I possibly had mate. It didn't occur to me that there was actually an evasion until they were actually doing it and getting out of check. And then I realized, holy shit, with discovered check, I can just take this rook. And yeah, that was nice. Yeah, might have to just clip that. Because I have so much video on stream of me just absolutely fucking up chess games. To have a clip where I'm actually doing something pretty fucking cool. Oh, okay, let's find out. I mean, we had started out yesterday with the very long Vosh is ignorant of Marxism plus a bad liar. Yesterday. But the thing is, he's so full of shit.
Liberty Mutual customizes your...
The thing is that that's actually all true. It's like, somehow, it's like sort of, when he and Vosh interact, it's like with... No, I'm actually interested in switching over. Oh, well, that's not a very well framed shot, is it? Let me show. Does that show through that crop? Jesus. What the who the fuck who set up the camera? They got somebody actually operating the camera? Or did they just leave it on the fucking tripod? Okay, and he's back to his fucking vice principal look.
Thank everyone for assembling for one last discussion and presentation as we conclude what has been a very successful weekend. I think it's been really awesome that we've been able to do this. There's going to be a lot of great presentations that are going to go up online. A lot of relationships between members of our organization have been solidified. We've gotten to know each other.
Okay, thank you.
Very successful.
Somebody is operating the camera.
But a lot of things have happened while we've been here in Lynn Valley, Kansas. And so I can't really end this retreat without making some comments on that and kind of opening up for discussion of that.
Okay, it's a fair bit of travel. I mean, granted, he's got no fucking he's got no budget for this thing. He's not what I found out when I decided to look into CPI is he's not paying for facilities. He's running it out of his home. So I guess they can just fundraise exclusively for fucking travel and doing these bullshit meetings in parts of Kansas I've not heard of.
So I
mean, not that I'm knocking the idea of, like, having, you know, meetings in Kansas. I think, actually, the fact that chuds like this are doing it, it's probably a good reason to be backing the legit organizer. Well, there's a list of people who are not city builders. Hello, Phoenix. Long time no see. Good to see you here.
I guess I want to start out by saying...
And city builders are people like FDR, Julius Caesar, Huey Long, and apparently Alexander Dugin. And vandals are... There's this whole list. It's like the good leftists, the people, you know, like there's the good leftists. Oh, well, because profits aren't in command in China, so the price of tea is being kept low, I guess. I mean, actually, that's like, ask it that way and you will get a 45-minute answer. Yes, this is Caleb Muppet.
Saying that there's a writer named Sherwood Anderson. I don't know if...
I don't, but we're going to find out. Okay, subjective and self-revealing works. He rose to become a successful copywriter and business owner in Cleveland and Elyria, Ohio. And then he died in Panama in 1941. Notable works, Winesburg, Ohio. Because Maupin says it's a good thing. It's a good thing because Maupin says so. Because a city builder, you see, does not want the kind of communism that Maupin doesn't want, so they don't want to get rid of, you know, things like commodity production or, you know, denying the working class control of the means of production or stuff like that. They just want to produce more. But he's got a whole book on why city builders are good things, and it's shit. If you check out the Thought Slime, Sophie from Mars collab, the fake Communist Party or the War Crime Liker Convention, like the second half of that is them doing a close read of the City Builders book, and it is some shit. Okay, early life. Chicago and War. That's a hell of a section title, Chicago and War. Okay. Business, marriage, and family. Fix your roof. Roof Fix, the roof fixing company. Anderson motherfucking Company. Novelist. Willie. He's one of the first American novelists to introduce new insights from psychology, including Freudian analysis. Wonder if anyone's told Muppet that. Okay, so let's find out what this fool has to say about him. Yeah. It is exhausting, and I got called a Holocaust revisionist for simply pointing out that being and that wearing a pink triangle under Nazi rule was actually still considerably more safe than wearing a pink triangle with a yellow one underneath it. Like, which is just totally fucking uncontroversial. That Nazis were actually made life much more dangerous for Jews because there was no out at all. And it wasn't...
People have ever heard of Sherwood Anderson. He was a famous writer during the 1930s. He wrote a novel called Winesburg, Ohio, which was a kind of populist, quaint novel, realism about a small town. But Winesburg, Ohio was, quote...
We're back to this wonderful fucking camera angle. I wonder if she knows what's been set up here.
Quoted as being asked, what's the difference between a socialist and a communist? And he said he did not know the technical difference, but it seemed like the communists are the ones who mean it. That's what he said the difference was.
Oh, so that's okay. I just went through all this shit about fucking Sherwood Anderson, and this is all? That's it? I mean, okay. Cool quote. I'll go with it.
And what he's pointing toward is a level of political seriousness that has kind of defined communists, Marxist-Leninists, socialists, revolutionary anti-imperialists. And
wait, he specifically said socialists weren't the ones who mean it, though.
A lot of times people don't understand that seriousness. If you read some of the...
Yeah, Caleb Maupin, for example, does not understand that seriousness. He thinks that he's being serious because he's got his, big boy suit on. And he talks down to everybody like they're literal fucking children. But there's nothing serious about what he's doing.
Critical histories of the Communist Party. Trotsky alludes to this, but so do just straight-up anti-communists. They talk about the zigging and the zagging, right? They have a song, Our Line's Gonna Change Again, right? And they talk about how during the early 1930s, the Communist Party took the position that Social Democrats were the main enemy. They were the main roadblock, and opposing the Social Democrats was the main focus. But then, after Hitler came to power, and as they were leading up to the Second World War, they switched their position, and they started building an alliance with Social Democrats, because that was what was needed in order to defeat fascism and setting the stage for the Second World War. And
then they formed an alliance with the fascists and decided that defeating fascism could kind of wait, because Stalin somehow had the idea that Hitler would just live up to his agreements, even though his own intelligence people handed him the full invasion plans, and obviously there was going to be a fucking invasion. If Stalin had just taken his own intelligence people seriously, World War II would have been a hell of a lot shorter.
And people looked at this and they said they're inconsistent. But what they were is they were serious. They understood what we've kind of become a mantra of CPI. Over the weekend, we've said it so many times that if the situation changes in 24 hours, the tactics must also change in 24 hours.
Well, your tactics have never been anything other than giving bullshit speeches and lying about leftists, though. I'm pretty sure we're going to have that be your tactic still. Oh, and allying with fascists.
But they also understood that you can't do tactics lightly. You can't half-ass it. If they had just half-assed calling out an exposure...
What tactics do you even do, dude?
...opposing the Social Democrats, it wouldn't have worked. If they just half-assed building a popular front with the Social Democrats, it wouldn't have worked. And the communists are the ones who mean it. And while their tactics change, they always take with it a level of very serious, intentional, motivated effort. Right? They're serious about getting things done. They want to achieve their aim.
So when he allies himself with the LaRoucheites, he means it.
And because of that, they take a level of seriousness. And there's some communists from Iran that I think are almost like the shining example of this, because after the Islamic Revolution of Iran in 1979, there were
they ended up having to flee the country, a lot of them.
Very big communist parties in Iran. You had the Tudeh party, which was the big communist party. Then you had the Mujahideen, which was the Islamic socialist group. And then you also had the Fedayeen, the People's Fedayeen guerrillas. And because Iraq invaded Iran, there was heavy political repression of communists in the aftermath of the Islamic Revolution. But there are many Iranian communists I know who had relatives who were killed, who went to prison, some of whom were tortured, that in more recent years, 2006, starting from about 2006, have come to the conclusion that the Islamic Republic is moving in a revolutionary, anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist direction.
For example, name some of them, because the communists there are actually pretty seriously repressed even now. Yeah, exactly. Khomeini was a hardcore anti-communist. And his government was, and it wasn't because the fucking Iraqis invaded that they decided to become anti-communist. They were outright anti-communist, and the reason that communists actually allied with Khomeini's lot was because the Shah was just that horrible that they were willing to work with pretty much fucking anybody just to make that stop. That's how, it was not an alliance that was ever going to live long, and when Khomeini's lot ended up in charge, it was not going to be a safe place, which is why a lot of Iranian communists are living these days in Germany and France.
And even though they have this horrendous trauma of members of their family being killed and of themselves being tortured, they understand this. And they see the relationship between Venezuela and the Bolivarian countries in Iran, and they see what's going on with Russia and China. And based on this level of political seriousness, they're able to actually align with the government that heavily repressed them in the early 80s.
And continues to do so today. Because of course he conflates this shit. Of course he's going to conflate this, because that is his whole fucking spiel. But there is a difference between saying that you don't think that the U.S. means well with Iran, and that the U.S. needs to get their hands off of Iran, and end the sanctions, and calling out the bullshit about a nuclear program that the U.S. intelligence community has even said does not exist and is unlikely ever to exist. That's one thing. That's not the same thing as outright aligning with the government. That's just recognizing that the U.S., if they get their way in Iran, it's not going to be any better for communists.
And that's what is being alluded to in the statement made by Sherwood Anderson, that we're the ones who mean it.
Well, yeah, he's managed to read a whole lot into one line from Sherwood Anderson, who, remember the first part of the quote was that he didn't really know anything about them. About socialists or communists. He said, I don't really know anything about them, but the communists seem to be the ones who mean it. So, considering that he started out by saying that he was kind of ignorant on the subject, I don't think that he meant all of this stuff.
We are capable of doing very politically difficult things and saying things that are not easy to say and doing things that we would not naturally do, because we are one to a political line that it's what needs to be done. And that is the approach that we need to take toward the recent Supreme Court ruling around Roe versus Wade.
Okay. The approach is we need to do what needs to be done. Okay. Oh, he's not paying for facilities. This is somebody's house.
Because there's nothing easier, especially in leftist and socialist circles, than going along with the prevailing narrative. If you were out in the streets right now saying, burn it down, civil war, that's the easiest thing in the world.
Really? Yeah, fucking risking your life, risking getting the shit kicked out of you by cops, that's the easiest thing in the world. That is so much easier than standing in a suit in the middle of nowhere, giving a speech about how fucking serious you are. Anyone can, organize clandestine abortion resources and set up funding networks so that people can get across state lines if they need to, and fucking take the fight to these bullshit fake clinics and all this stuff. Anyone can do that. You have to be real serious to put on your fucking khakis and your crappy suit and your narrow tie from like 1964 and stand up in front of a banner and talk about how serious you are.
And it's very easy.
In the world's worst camera framing ever. Like, nobody has looked into this viewfinder since they set that up. And they set that up before people sat down. They did not know. They can't have possibly have known that this is the fucking angle they set up. They would have zoomed in more.
To go along with the crowd. And it's very easy to just echo what CNN and MSNBC are saying. It's very easy to do that. But our job is not to do what's easy. Our job is to do what needs to be done to carry out our aim.
Okay, A, what needs to be done, and B, what the hell is your aim in this context? I mean, you've been self-congratulating for 5 whole minutes.
And we know that our ultimate aim of setting up an America where the banks, factories, and industries are organized to serve public good and not the profits of a few, where the people of the United States are seeing their living standards rise in alliance with the Eurasian countries, Russia and China and Venezuela, etc., that carrying out that aim is something that the liberals don't intend to do. And what the liberals want to do and what we want to do are completely opposite. And while we
okay, now, the Supreme Court ruling, what was that about, Caleb? Are we going to talk about the Supreme Court ruling itself? Are we going to just talk about how fucking hardcore you are as you stand and give a bullshit speech in fucking Kansas to an audience of like 15?
We may agree on certain issues. While we may favor labor unions, we may oppose racism, we're not the liberals. And
well, I mean, you may oppose racism. That's the key word there is may. They may oppose racism eventually. Haven't done it yet, but they're considering.
While we may agree on some things, we don't agree on all things, and we have a separate aim. And because of that, we have to sometimes do different than what the liberals do. And so that's how we have to approach this recent Supreme Court ruling. And I want to point out that there is diversity of opinion in the Center for Political Innovation. But
okay. He's being really vague. You know that this is going to be bad.
I would say the overwhelming majority of our organization are pro-choice. I personally am pro-choice. You know, there are some exceptions in our organization, but the overwhelming majority of our organization are pro-choice. And I'll tell you why I personally am pro-choice.
Okay, this will be good.
I personally am pro-choice because of the fact that we do not have a religious government in the United States. That, you know, at the time the United States was founded, there were 13 colonies, and 9 of them had state religions. There were 9 of the 13 colonies that had official state religions. And the reason that the Bill of Rights, Amendment number 1...
Is bodily autonomy going to come into this at all?
...of the Constitution of the United States says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, was because the only way those states that had state religions would join was if they understood that their state religion wouldn't be suppressed, right? Maryland was a Catholic state. Massachusetts was a Puritan state.
Except that the thing is that the Establishment Clause, the whole point of it was that there would not be a state religion.
Quakers were running Pennsylvania. That's why it's Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods, after William Penn, the Quaker. And there was a fear on the part of many of these states that if they joined the United States, that a religious group that had more support would take control of the government and impose their state religion on minority religions. And the United States, as people were coming into it from around the world, was a place that people with divergent religious views could go. And so in order to preserve that safety for people of minority religious views, there was a feeling at the time the United States was founded that it must be a country where the government has no establishment of religion. Where the
who gives a shit? We're talking about, this is why you're personally pro-choice. This is like when George Bush Sr. was talking about the time he was shot down over the Pacific and clinging to a life raft or something, and how what kept him going over the as he was under the beating sun in the Pacific Ocean waiting for somebody to rescue him was thinking about the separation of church and state. Like, what the fuck? Like, are we gonna talk? Is bodily autonomy coming in here? Are we gonna talk about what fucking abortion rights are about? Or are we just gonna waffle on about fucking separation of church and state and kind of just ignore that?
The government is neutral on religious matters. The government is not saying there is no God. The government is not saying there is a God. The government's not Christian. It's not Muslim. It's not atheist. It's neutral on religious matters. And
it's funny, whenever he talks about religion, he always leaves out Jews.
Whether or not a fetus constitutes a life, a human life that the government is obligated to defend, in my view, is a religious question. It is not one that you can prove in a court of law. It's not.
See, okay, this is just the most cowardly approach possible, because the thing is the one thing that I think pretty much is totally uncontroversial is that the person in whose body the fetus is gestating definitely constitutes a life that is supposed to be able to expect to be defended by the state, although in capitalism, I mean, that's not necessarily gonna fucking happen. This is the most ridiculous argument possible, and he's
not one that you can argue. And because it is ambiguous, and because different religious views and different philosophical systems feel that way.
Oh, well, I mean, there is also, like, fucking biology, you know.
For the government at the local, state, or federal level to take a position and outlaw abortion would not be consistent with the law of the United States and with a principle that I think comes out of the founding of the United States. It's good. We don't want to celebrate everything about the United States.
Okay, so he's only against it because it's inconsistent with the law of the United States? Well, the thing is, the Supreme Court, who get to just decide unilaterally what the fucking law is, have said it's totally consistent with the law of the United States. So, does that mean... So, that's a completely useless position to hold.
The Constitution also says black people are 3/5 of a human being. The Constitution's not great in a lot of ways, but one principle, this principle of no established religion, I think is a good one. And so that's why I personally take a pro-choice position. And I'm not happy to see that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. And I know the result of that is in many states that have trigger laws, abortion has been outlawed. And I'm not happy about this. And I understand that this is a moment where there's a huge amount of outrage going on.
Okay, I mean... So, this is very clearly, he is telegraphing to us that he's about to explain why this organization, the people who, you know, the real communists who mean it, are not going to do anything about this.
There's many people that fear and they talk about the safety of women. You know, women who want to get abortions, may not be able to do so in a legal, regulated, safe manner. And there's fear about, when women try to give themselves abortions. We see protesters out there with bloody hangers, and there's a lot of fear and anger in the population right now.
Well, no shit. Yes, there is, because this is a horrible thing that just happened. It's a fucking atrocity. And it also just happens to go against the views of the overwhelming majority of the population.
Well, that said, there are people that are part of our community.
That said, you knew there was a but.
That their religious belief, whether they are Muslim or Christian or Jewish or Hindu, they have the opposite perspective.
Except actually, he throws, the one time he throws Jews in, he gets it wrong. Because the actual traditional Jewish view is that life begins with the first breath you take.
And they're welcome to be part of the Center for Political Innovation. And I'm going to get to that in a little.
Yeah, I'm sure Jews are totally welcome. I'd love him to introduce the Jewish member he's got.
A bit. But the first point I want to make, and this is a point that I think that we just need to get everyone to understand. If the American people could understand this aspect of the debate around Roe versus Wade, things in the United States could really change. Why was Roe versus Wade overturned?
Because of a fucking far-right... Because a handful of far-right assholes were allowed to become members of a court that is essentially infallible and all-powerful, and it's utterly illegitimate. And this is all because of an extremely well-funded campaign by reactionary Christian fundamentalists and fascists. That's why. That's why, despite the fact that if you actually left it up to the population, the overwhelming population would be in favor of keeping abortion legal, that's why we're in this situation.
It was overturned because the right wing fought for it. That's why.
Well, okay, well, that's not wrong.
You didn't notice there was this event called January 6th where people stormed the Capitol. If you didn't notice, there are huge evangelical churches across this country that have deep roots in communities. If you didn't notice, there are all kinds of people who've given their efforts, their lives, their time to try and overturn Roe versus Wade.
And if you didn't notice, they are very clearly in the minority. They've got a huge amount of money. They get a lot better coverage in the media than they deserve. But even with all of the backing they've got, they're in the minority.
And through their activism, and through their confrontation with the power structure, and more recently, they weren't just saying vote red no matter who, they were actively going out and confronting this. And through their activism,
going out and confronting this, yes, they were blowing up clinics, shooting doctors, harassing patients and healthcare workers. You know, they got the Supreme Court to say that it was protected by the First Amendment to go to clinic workers' homes and protest outside of them and harass them.
Through their organizing, through their deep roots in the community, and through their real threats to the powers that be, they got what they wanted.
They weren't a threat to the powers that be. They were funded by the fucking powers
and that should be solid proof that if the Democrats really wanted Medicare for all, they could do it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so we've just kind of moved away altogether. Yeah, true. If the Democrats actually gave a shit about universal health care, the support is there. It would, that has been a majority position for quite a long time. Yeah, but we're just gonna move away from the whole abortion thing, abortion rights thing altogether, are we?
If the Democrats were willing to fight for Medicare for all, for union rights, the same way the right wing has fought against abortion, we would have it right now. We would have the Employee Free Choice Act, we'd have union card check, we'd have Medicare for all, we'd have free college for all. The reason that the Democrats are not fighting for these things they claim to believe in is because, unlike the right wing that really does, for their own reasons, believe that abortion should be overturned, the Democrats don't believe in these things. The Democrats give lip service to these things, but they don't really believe in them. And that this is something we need to make very, very clear. That
yeah, but what the fuck are you going to do about it?
Also, you'll notice that it wasn't during the era of neoconservatives that Roe versus Wade was overturned.
That's not entirely true. The first really big attack on Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court was actually during the Bush years. It was in 2007. It was a case called Gonzalez and Carhart that upheld the so-called partial birth abortion ban. Well, there are 42 minutes in this, and we're on minute 10, and unfortunately
it was overturned in the era of Trump and populism. And that's when the Democratic Party was in power, but the Republican Party stopped being the party of just vote for us and the status quo. But when the Republican Party...
The thing is, the Republican Party, this is actually not... This isn't entirely true. In fact, it's actually kind of bullshit. Because the thing about the Republicans, and the reason that their turnout is much more reliable than the Democrats, is that the Republicans are constantly giving their voters something that they want. Because their voters are as horrible as they are. Well, he managed to make the point that he doesn't seem to give a shit about bodily autonomy. He sees abortion as a religious matter.
Party started flirting with populism and flirting with radicalism and pumping up their base in an anti-establishment way and actually becoming a threat to the power structure.
They weren't a threat to the power structure. They're part of the fucking power structure, you dickhead.
That's when the power structure was forced to give them what they want. And
no, what the... No. They got 3 fucking Supreme Court justices. They got to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. That gave them a majority. they already had 4 Supreme Court justices that were itching to overturn Roe. And then they put another fucking 3 on there. That's how they got it. This isn't some fucking grassroots rebellion. It's just they appointed judges. That's all they fucking did.
This needs to be acknowledged, and this is something we can tell our coworkers and our friends, and that they could understand. That the way they got what they wanted was by becoming a threat to the power structure, making real demands. And I actually predicted this. It's not a great moment to go,
AOG, you predicted that the Republicans who'd managed to put 7 whole justices up, yeah, 7 whole justices out, 6 justices out of 9 who wanted to overturn Roe were going to overturn Roe. I mean, you could have predicted that going back well before 2016. It was obvious that that was coming. The minute the Republicans were able to put a majority on the Supreme Court, it was fucking obvious. You do not get to flex with the fact that you predicted that.
Told you so, but 3 or 4 years ago, I predicted that Roe versus Wade was going to be overturned. And I said why. The reason that I said Roe versus Wade was going to be overturned was because this is a victory that can be given to the Trump base, to middle America, without ultimately changing the structure of the United States. Right?
See, actually, that manages to be wrong on so many levels, and he manages to make this seem so much more complicated than it is. Like, you have a majority who were totally going to we're going to overturn Roe at the first fucking opportunity, and they did exactly that. And if you looked at these people's careers and you looked at the vetting that they went through in order to even be considered for the court, it was a given that they were going to do that. There is no fucking fourth dimensional chess involved in realizing that that was coming. Which is why it's so ridiculous that the Democrats act like they had absolutely no chance to prepare, and all they've got is these fucking fundraising emails. Yeah, acting like how could we possibly have seen this coming? It's like, if you were watching, you could tell from the 1980s that this was coming. If the Republicans ever got a majority on the Supreme Court, they were coming for Roe, because they fucking said so. And I'm pretty sure Democrats over the years have actually used that in order to get out the vote, to say, if they ever get to put a majority on the court, Roe's going away, and we're the ones who are going to defend it. Well, they had 40 years, they still haven't fucking defended it. They haven't done shit. They've come up with reasons they can't do anything, and then they've told us to vote harder. Because they don't give a fuck about this, and, well, Caleb Maupin clearly doesn't give a fuck either. I mean, he's probably going to ask these people for $15 at the end of this, too. And with that, it is nearly 1 o'clock. It is time to wrap things up for tonight. Thank you to everyone who came. And I'll be back Friday and Saturday night, same time, 11:30 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. U.S. Eastern Time. I don't know. I can never keep track of whether it's daylight or non-daylight at any given time. U.S. Eastern Time. So, see you then.